Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Dear authors and invited guests, welcome to a technical session 5T. On the behalf of WorldExpo 2021 and the Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th International Conference on Smart Trend and System Security and Sustainability through Zoom. We are very thankful to everyone who present on this platform, go along with us digitally for this conference on these unpredictable days in and I also wish everyone for their and own families for their unpredictable circumstances of this COVID-19 and for everyone for their families for a protected time, and we all will pass together this soon and hope you will enjoy the 2 days of knowledgeful and interactive sessions. Just before we get started, I would like to introduce our session chair, Nilanjan De. Nilanjan De is an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, GIS University, Kolkata, India. He is a visiting fellow of the University of Reading, UK. He had an honorary position of a visiting scientist as a global biomedical technology. He has authored, editor more than 80 books with the Elsewhere CRC Press, Springer Nature, and published more than 300 papers. He is the editor-in-chief of the International Journals of Ambient Computing and Intelligence, associate editor of IEEE Access and International Journal of Information Technology, Springer. His main research interests include medical imaging, machine learning, computer-aided diagnosis, data mining, etc. Thank you so much, sir, and I welcome you.
Thank you very much. So a very good afternoon to all of you. So this is the second day of WorldExpo, and I think this is a 5D session, technical session. So our today's first presenter will be Radha Krishna, foreign. Yeah, please start, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm very happy to present my the presentation on foreign accent recognition. Okay, shall I share my screen, sir?
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure, sir. Continue.
Sir, you are able to see this?
Yes, perfect. Please continue.
Okay, good afternoon once again. Good morning, all of you. My topic is foreign accent recognition using a combination of native and non-native speech. So today's agenda is like this. So these are the overview, all the points. I have divided my talk into these points. First of all, I talk about what is inferring native language, that is L1. The people call it as L1 from foreign accented utterance, right? And the second one, how to characterize non-native speech. In other words, speaker, non-native foreign accented speaker with foreign accented speech. The third part is I have taken my problem is identifying the regional accented South Indian English speech. That is my third point. Fourth one, I will describe briefly on a in-house developed database, which is developed specifically for this purpose. Finally, I'll discuss the results of two aspects. My experiments are two-pronged. First one is identifying native language. Second one is classification of foreign accented speech. In other words, language accent partitioning. So this is my basic this thing. Now straight away, I'll go to the presentation. So this is foreign accent recognition, generally called FAR. So one of the main aspect is identifying L1 from L2. L1 is, it is mother tongue, native language, and L2, it is second language or a learned language. So this mainly comprises a speech processing application of NLI. NLI is nothing but analyzing and analysis and classification of speech collected from particular groups of second language learners, right? So this NLI is finding L1 from L2. So the main crux of the talk is generally L1 affects utterance in L2. So with some conditions, which we will see all the in-depth details of this in coming slides. And the present study is identifying native language of a speaker from non-native English speech. So it main problem is finding out a robust and efficient method of classifying speakers. So this how to characterize a non-native speaker or characterizing non-native speech. So what is accent? It is a distinct pattern of pronunciation of speakers belonging to a geographical location or a particular nation. So people, it is called geographical nativity or ethnic nativity, so on will come under this. So main issue is predominant articulatory traits of different languages are different. Each language has got a set of phonemes. So you are interested in features distinguishing these phonemes of a native language or different native languages. So the usual practice is to use spectral based features to extract phonemic nature of a language. So knowledge contained in articulatory state sequences in non-native species generally used for foreign accent recognition. So next one, speaker characterization based upon South Indian regional accent. I have chosen 3 major South Indian languages, Telugu, Tamil, and Kannada. So most of the native listeners possess knowledge pertaining to regional accent of the speech. So what this means is a learner, what do you call, a senior learner, or he can easily identify the L1 from the trend, from the type of non-native accent he can identify. Next, automatic identification of native language of speakers of homologous languages. Homologous means geographically close language is particularly challenging. And the present research is mainly MTI, that is mother tongue influence on second language, L2. So that is with reference to South Indian speakers I am concentrating. So next, novel framework I have adopted, which leverages native language characteristics of South Indian speakers, which are reflected in their non-native English accent. So this how to model this foreign accented speech. What I have done is non-native speakers while speaking a learned language, that is second language, a learned language, which they learn after critical period. Critical period means there is a period before puberty, they call it, right? Before 15 years, you can take it. They substitute phonemes from their first language instead of learning new phonemes. So they carry the phonemes of the mother tongue to the second language. That is the problem. So, and 3 native language models I have developed using capstral-based systems, utilizing MFCCs. All of you know what is MFCC. And for achieving the desired task. My task is I am finding the native South Indian language from English-speaking South Indians. That is the problem. Then modeling approach are inspired by extensively studied areas, ASV, automatic speaker verification, and ASI, they call it. So next, what are the earlier studies? So earlier studies, they are mostly fixed a set of it is confined to a dozen. A dozen means 12, a dozen languages. So it's not much work has been done, and L1, L2 are fixed. Mostly L2 is English. So choosing other than English is a novel idea. So it is going on research. And usual practice is to create models representing the sequential statistics of target language. So target language, they represent they model it, and the modeling technique is SVM and GMM commonly. So this is the scenario of existing research. So approaches modeling static distribution of acoustic features, patterns of changes of these vectors. So they can also use the prosodic features also, different features, and modeling techniques can range up to DNN starting from KNN. So this is the background of earlier studies. Coming to my proposed methodology, basically my approach is I have collected data both from native language and non-native language, that is English. So I have proposed a generic method. My method is modeling first I have developed 3 native language models. Then English test utterances I have compared against these 3 models. And so this is, I will discuss it shortly. So NLI task I have implemented by testing the unknown speaker with one of the developed models for determining the mother tongue. So this is a novel approach where I have explored both L1 and L2, right? So L1 I have modeled, my training data set is native language, testing is English. So this is the database collection details. So I have speakers, I told you just now, they are divided into training set and testing set. Training set consists of native speech, testing set consists of non-native speech. So 20 speakers from each of the 3 languages, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, which I have abbreviated as KN, TAM, and TEL. I have collected native speech for 1 hour in each language. 20 speakers I have chosen, each speaker for 5 minutes. Similarly, a non-overlapping set, totally different set of 25 speakers. So they are compatriots, they call it compatriots of each language group. 25 I have chosen. So testing set contained speakers belonging to each language, 3 of the language, and their characteristics is they have proficiency language who have the proficiency to speaking English apart from their mother tongue. They are not expert. They are just working knowledge they have. So this is the background of my work. And so this is a database. So this is the result. I'll come to the result afterwards. So first I will explain about development of models, native language models. So native language models have been developed, and regional origin is considered as generalization of speaker identity, and English speaker as a special subtype of language. So the possible features can be derived from learner speech for any NLI task. So these are the MFCC features, and it can also be lexical features like errors related to language. As I told, it can also be prosodic features.
Dear author, sorry to interrupt you, but you have last 2 minutes.
Okay, sir, I'll quickly wind up. So this is a detection of South Indian English speaker from using NLI approach, native language identification. So text independent data I have chosen. So all of you know text independent, this is fixed text and free text. This is free text. And mainly I have used GMM based models I have developed for 3 languages. I have tested for GMM UBM models also I have developed. Finally, iVector classifier gave the best efficiency. As I told, the previous approach I have adopted, I have explained before. So using this approach and iVector classification, I got 95% accuracy. I am able to identify speakers, native language. And so next step I have taken is validation. Validation means whether how non-accent, language-related accent is getting partitioned in both the training set and testing set. This is validation. So those experiments I have taken up. So this language, once I will show you the database. This is a database, training set and testing set. And non-native accent partitioning, this is the English standard TIMIT corpora. This is the MFCC coefficients scatter plot, and these are the 3 languages plots, language plots. So scatter plot is different, but classification also I have taken up, SVM classification. It gave 89% accuracy. So this validation of non-native accent is like this. I have done 2 experiments. First is I have combined both native and non-native speech. So it gave 86% classification when I combined both. This is only for validation. And this is non-native accent partitioning. That is test set. Test set, are they really getting separated? That is what. So this also gave 89% accuracy. So they are separate, both in training set, they are separate, testing set, they are separate. And so this is the scatter plot, and this is the final consolidated picture. So what it shows, so the last line shows my approach of NLI, native language identification. First three, it is only partitioning, native speech partitioning. That means LID, native speech partition is nothing but LID, language identification. Then non-native speech partitioning means classification. So they are getting clearly classified. MFCC features are useful. This is the analysis of my results. So the issue I have addressed and I have validated, and a consolidated list I have present. This is the conclusions. Novel method is proposed, and identifying what I found out mainly is identifying Kannada speakers is relatively easier than Tamil and Telugu. I have confusion matrix I have seen. And so this is a conclusion. Many experiments have revealed that Kannada speakers have difficulty, that is, they can be easily identified. That's what my experiment says. And speaker and accent partitioning has been clearly demonstrated. And I have shown the classification accuracies. And paper addresses classification of foreign accents in the multilingual Indian scenario. And the future scope is, it can be for different speech styles and for different speaker population, and using prosodic features and for different language sets. This is a generic method, anybody can use it. So these are the references, so you can go through it. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Nice presentation. I mean, work is also fine. Just one thing, the data set is very less. I mean, are you thinking about increasing the size? Because 20 and 25, 5 minutes, it is fine. For MFC, 5 minutes, it is fine.
Yes,
but the number of data set is something.
Yes, sir. So it is 1 hour for each language, sir. 20 so speakers, 5 minutes I have recorded.
Variability is a bit less.
5 minutes and 1 hour of speech set for each language, sir.
So variability is a little bit less. Okay, so if it is 20, then might be, if it is 1 hour, that is fine. But
1 hour, sir. 1 hour for each language.
A number of speaker might be, you can
20, increase. Sir. 10 male and 10 weightage.
Because accuracy which you obtain 93%, that yes, needs, sir. If you want to improve that, might be the data set need to be more tuned.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much. So any other question or suggestions from anyone, please feel free to ask. Okay, I think we should go for the next presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next presentation is, the presenter will be, the presenter, yeah, please.
I would like to invite our next presenter, T. Rakesh Reddy, for presenting his paper on self-driving car using Raspberry Pi 3B positive and a PI camera.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rakesh Reddy. May I have permission to share my screen?
Yeah, please continue.
Thank you. Is it visible, sir?
It's yet to come.
Now, sir?
No, I think you should stop and you should reshare.
Yes, sir. 1 minute. Now, sir?
Now it's coming. Yes, perfect.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rakesh Reddy. Firstly, I would like to thank WorldS4 for accepting my paper. And my paper is about self-driving car using Raspberry Pi 3B plus model and a Pi camera. These are the outlines that I did in the PPT. And next, objectives. The main objective of my project or paper is that in the world, the accidents are quite common in the world. Like in a day, on an average of 2,000 people or maybe more are dying in a road accident. So the main motivation of making this project is that to decrease the rate of accidents in the world by giving the driving to the computers or microprocessors to do the work of driving by microprocessors. These introduction, an autonomous car is a vehicle that is capable of seeing its environment and operating without the human involvement. This car would drive itself from one place to another place on its own. It would possess integrated features like lane detection, object detection, and traffic sign detection, and etc. etc. By we can increase them in future. Next, this is the proposed design or the block diagram which I implemented in my robot, which I already did as my final project in the BTech. As you can see, there are two types. One is, first we should train the robot, and second one is the robot will control itself using neural network. So in this block diagram, motor driver, the Raspberry Pi controller, and camera. The Raspberry Pi controller is the main computer for the whole project. The Pi camera is used as an eye for the total robot. The images from the camera will be saved in the controller and generate a neural network model, and that neural network model will generate a .h5 file, which is further used in controlling itself. The car will use it furtherly, and how it works, mainly how it works. In autonomous cars, the driving commands from a human driver are replaced by the microcontroller, and it generates the commands from the information it gets in training session. Some of the important factors in autonomous vehicles, such as lane detection, traffic sign detections, steer-by-wire system, we use many algorithms to make the robot to do the work. And we have many. Basically, the robot working is divided into 3 steps. First is data collection, second is training, and third is prediction of the steering angle. In first data collection modules, particularly in my project, I made sure that there will be no confusion in programming. So I will make sure that every module is divided to someone and they will be called upon in a main module, like a joystick module. In training session, I used PS4 joystick as a remote controller to train my robot, and the data collection module is to collect the data, like image files, how much is the steering angle that is at that particular image. Like if at image number 1 the steering angle is 0, and at the image number 2 the steering angle will be 2, and like that the data will be stored by data collection module. And motor module is to move the motors as per the joystick in this particular data collection module, and webcam module is for taking the images and incoming images. And after the completion of main data collection module, the images, image folder will be saved, and a log file consisting of steering angles will be filed. This is the steps that I explained previously. This is the training module. Second one is the training module, as I said previously. The in training module, previously obtained image folder and log file will be taken and trained. This training module is further divided into 10 steps. In first step, the image path and the steering angle, the path of the image and the steering angle will be taken, and then they will form a data frame, and that data frame will be visualized. If the data is too low to analyze, then we will balance the data and make sure that it is very easy to analyze for the computer. And we'll prepare for processing and split the data into X-train, X-val, and Y-train, Y-value values. And we'll augment and process the images, like cropping the image, color spacing, adding blur, resizing, so that the processor will understand the image efficiently and works efficiently. And we create a module and we'll train it, and we'll make a model.h5 file. Like we'll make a .h5 file which further will be used in the prediction of prediction values. In prediction of steering angle, the .h5 file which we obtained previously and webcam module are combined each other, and now the webcam module will take the live feed and compare this field with this live feed with previous obtained images and the steering angles, and makes the motor to run easily and efficiently on the road, so that it cannot go to any, it cannot obtain any we cannot accidents and all. These are the some software requirements that I got. And in future, I'd like to add some more sensors, some more cameras, so that we can see the back and front and sides, and lane changing will be a bit easy. And currently the training is done in small track with a normal environment, like in a room, but I want to upgrade my robot to do it in all other weather conditions and all. These are the results. This is the pics that I took while the line detection is occurring, and these are some references.
Okay, thank you. So this is your grad project, correct?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, so lots of things needs to be done. It's very.
Sir, yes, sir, please say, sir. I'll try to improve myself, sir.
Like the augmentation part, what you have discussed,
sir.
That part, the main challenge is whatever the augmentation you are doing,
sir.
The base image is same. So
sir.
any type of augmentation, if you go for manipulation technique, image manipulation technique, the
sir.
major problem is once you do based on the manipulation technique, all generated images are biased.
Yes, sir.
Second thing is, if the objects are too small, even if you go for the deep learning, the YOLO module or anything, one biggest challenge that detect that joint object, or if there is a object overlap.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So these challenges, how you address that, I mean, that needs to be find out. So
yes, sir.
the lane detection or only the object detection. Apart from these, there are lots of other challenges are there, which you have to address one by one. As I said, like joint objects. So might be there is some shadowing effect. So if there is some shadowing effect, what it will do. So these different challenges you try to identify, and then you try to resolve one by one. There are lots of different challenges you will face for this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll try to improve myself, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Thank you.
So please move forward.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Now we can forward to our next presenter, Avikshita Sai Chaudhary, to present her paper on circular polarized microstrip patch antenna for a 5G applications. Maybe she's not here.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can move forward to the next presenter. Mr. Sandeep Singh, for presenting his paper on a machine learning based contingent categorization approach in the early recognition to a breast carcinoma. Mr. Sandeep.
Okay, so next one.
I think Sandeep is not here. Our next presenter is Sumant Reddy, for presenting his paper on IoT-based smart solar monitoring system.
I think he is in the room.
Yes.
It's my
Hello. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, Sumant, you are audible.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I would share my screen.
Yes, please.
Just a second. So, hello everyone. I'm Sumant Reddy. I would be talking about our project, that is IoT-based smart solar monitoring system. Yes. So these are the authors: Vinay Rasar, Usha Pravkar, Sumant Reddy, that's me, Jitesh Sanap, Arpit Saab, and Dr. Manisha Mitra. Yes. So these are the content of our project. First of all, we would talk about objectives. Then we would talk about solar monitoring system, and then the another one, that is sun position tracking panel. And next we will discuss about limitations and future scope. First of all, I would discuss about the title of this paper, why this is called IoT-based smart solar monitoring system. First of all, this smart solar, which is sun position tracking solar panel, as we know, the sun moves from sun rays moves from like east to west direction. Sun moves from east to west direction, but our solar system is situated in one direction only. It cannot track the sun, or it cannot change its direction according to sun. So it has very limited amount of consumption. So that's why it is the solar panel that is being discussed here. It changes its position regarding to the sun. So it's a smart solar system, and monitoring system is for like here we are using IoT for that. So through monitoring system, we are analyzing the output of the solar panel remotely. Yes. So first of all, I would like to discuss about the problem statement, the motivation behind to work on this project. So there is a need of efficient monitoring system as solar panel output changes variantly. Like if there is change in the weather, then it automatically changes its power, and there must be any efficient monitoring system for that. And there is low power generation through the solar panel, as in cloudy regions or in any other areas. There's a cloudy region, the sun is not visible, or there are sun rays different direction, they are not falling on the solar panel. So automatically solar panel would produce the lower voltage. So that's why we have to develop a system to get a maximum amount of power from it. So the system objectives are tracking real-time output of solar panel through a server, that is by using the IoT, and then designing a panel that adjusts its position according to the direction of the sunrise. So these are the objectives. And then this is the block diagram for the solar monitoring system. Here we have a solar panel that we have used 12 volt of solar panel. We can use 24 volt as per our convenience. And then for measuring voltage, we have a voltage divider circuit called the ESP32 module that we have used here, that we are using here, can read the voltage up to 0 to 3.3 volt scale. So to read the voltage of solar panel that is in the range of 12 volt, we have to step down the voltage. So for that, we have used voltage divider circuit, and after using voltage divider circuit, it scales down the voltage, and it gives the values of 12 volt into 0 to 3.3 volt range. And ESP32 can easily read that voltage values. And then after that, for measuring current, we have used Hall effect current sensor here. So Hall effect current sensor basically uses Hall effect to calculate current. Hall effect is basically if current passes through a conductor, it creates magnetic field deviation. And by using that magnetic field, we can a voltage is produced in Hall sensor, and that voltage would give us the calculation about the current. So this is the Hall effect, and we have used that Hall effect current sensor SA712 here, as we were dealing with a small amount of current here. There are many varieties like SA723 and like that. These are Hall effect sensor that we can use. And then after that, these voltage would go to the ESP32. So here also we have to use the voltage scaler to scale down the voltage. Here current sensor can produce the voltage up to 5 volt. So to scale it down to the 3.3 volt, we have to use voltage scaler here. And then after that, to measure the ambient temperature of the solar panel, that is what temperature it is for the solar panel. We have used a temperature sensor here, which gives a digital output, which gives one wire communication with ESP32. So for that, we have used DS18B20 temperature sensor here, which is connected through the general input output pin to the ESP32 module. And after that, we are calculating all the parameters like current, voltage, power, energy, and temperature, and saving. These all the parameters are being calculated in ESP32, and then they are passed to the server that we are using. Here I've used here we have used the UB server, but a individual can use Blink server or any other. He can create his own server and plot all the data to the server. So this is a solar monitoring system which tracks all the real-time data. And after that, there is a important point about the voltage divider circuits. Here we are dividing the voltage. Here this is V solar. This is for voltage dividing, and this is for voltage divider after current sensor. So this voltage is coming from the current sensor, and this voltage is coming from the solar. So to step down that voltage into 3.3 volt, we are basically combined two resistors into a series. So this resistor would step down that voltage into 3.3, and the formula to calculate the output voltage is summation. Is basically summation of two voltages divided summation of two resistors divided by this second resistor, and then multiplying it with the output voltage. So this is voltage divider circuit for calculating the voltage, and this is for after current sensor. So this is one of the important part. And after that, the data is being plotted on the server. So here we can see the current we have plotted here, current, voltage, the power that we are getting in the watts, as we have used a small solar panel, and the temperature that we are getting here, then savings, then the energy. These things we can calculate easily after getting the information from the sensors. And then here we have here the graph has been plotted between the values of the power and voltage. So individual can analyze the variations into the power and voltage. And temperature also can be added in this graph, so that individual can make idea, like if temperature is increasing, then how much amount voltage is increasing, or power is increasing. So like that, the data is being plotted on this server. And then after that, we would discuss about sun position tracking solar panel, in which we have two LDR sensors, that is light dependent resistors, which are the variable resistor, which increase its conductivity after we flash a light on it. So we have here the two LDRs that we have needed. One is LDR1 in, other is LDR2. And these two LDRs are being fixed on both of the upper and lower side of the solar PV panel, and they would produce analog values of the voltage ranging from 0 to 5 volt according to the intensity of light that is being flashed on them. So here what happened is LDR1 has its own value, LDR2 has its own value. If these values are equal, then servo motor wouldn't start, it would be in the rest. But if LDR1 has value greater than LDR2, then ESP32 will pass an interrupt towards a servo motor, and it would rotate in such a manner that the values of both LDR1 and LDR2 would be equal. So like that, this sun position tracking solar panel will work. Here there is here we have used one.
Dear author, you have 2 minutes left. Please.
Yes. Okay. So after that, I would like to jump on the limitations and future scope. There are some limitations, like the humidity inductor can be added, as we are calculating the temperature. Humidity is also a major part in the performance of the solar panel. And Second is the position of solar panel can be monitored and can be passed through IoT device and can be plotted on this server that we are using. Here we have not included the right now what position the solar panel is. So that calculation we can add. And third is we can implement two-dimensional moment of solar panel. Here we have used one-dimensional solar panel, but in some areas there is always cloudy region, and it is much difficult to focus a solar on light rays. So on that location, we can implement two-dimensional solar panel. And lastly, the conclusion is efficient monitoring system helps an individual to track all the real-time outcomes of solar system. The sun position tracking system can derive maximum amount of energy throughout the day. And if in any adverse condition, the system acts as an adaptable renewable source of energy. Yes. So this is it from my side. Thank you. I'll be glad to answer some questions.
Thanks for your presentation. I don't have any point. If anyone wants to ask any question, please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We can go for our next presentation. I would like to invite our next presenter, Jikisha Patil. Early lungs tuberculosis detection using deep learning. I think Jikisha is not here, so we can move our last presentation. Shreya Radhakrishnan, a paper presenting on urban sprawl assignment using remote sensing and GIS techniques, a case study of Irankulam district. We can wait a 5 minutes, then after we can close the session.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon.
My name is Vikshita. Our paper ID is 184, and the given timing was 12:16 BST.
Okay.
So, but according to the sequence, the one going on right now is 101 BST. So, should we present it or wait for this one to get completed and then do it?
You may please present your presentation. You may please start your presentation. Please.
Okay, ma'am.
Dear presenter, you have
Yes,
facing
yes,
any issue?
No, ma'am, no. Just a second.
Please.
Is the screen visible, ma'am?
Yes, please go ahead.
So, good evening, everyone. Today, I, Vikshita, will be presenting a paper, Circularly Polarized Microstrip Patch Antenna for 5G frequency range, on behalf of my team of Aditya Andotra, Anshika Mathur, and Himshweta Chauhan. So, in this, let's talk about 5G first. Recent times have seen a boom in the wireless communication technology, and antennas have a crucial role to play in the working of any communication setup. So our aim was to design an antenna that is physically and functionally flexible, which gives a high bandwidth, good gain, and good return loss, VSWR also, and is also energy efficient. And the 5G technology has become one of the most important sources for economic and also technical development. With 5G, we can exchange larger amount of data faster while saving energy. So by keeping with these trends, our antenna is designed to work in the 5G frequency range of 28 gigahertz, which is also called the millimeter wave mmW spectrum. So basically, a 5G enabled network is more reliable, it is secure, and reaches extreme capacities and data rates. So with 5G latency can be brought with the 5G latency, it can be brought down to 1 millisecond, enabling instantaneous connection. So it also enables Internet of Things and many other future innovations closer to reality, which leads into a future with smart cities. So now let's talk about circular polarization. Circular polarization basically allows the wave to travel through the medium in a corkscrew-like fashion, providing better mobility and functional flexibility. So the spirally broadcasted signal is a result of propagation of the electric field in two perpendicular planes, as can be seen in the slide. So an antenna that is circularly polarized can read tags in any direction. This is an example which can be given. So basically, in what happens in linear polarization is that you have the signals are propagate in only one phase, one plane, but in circular polarization, the signals propagate in all the planes. And also, circular polarization have undeniable advantages, like they can optimize reflectivity and absorption. They reduce multipath interference and are also resistant to signal degradation due to weather. Also, the circular polarized signals are better at penetrating and bending around the obstructions. So hence, there would be no signal degradation, and many more, as you can see, they have been listed. Now, in order to get into the conclusion with our design, we have done the literature survey. So basically, the literature survey helps us to dive deep into the various assumptions and parameters required so as to formulate and design an antenna design as per our objectives. So the main papers that were of significant importance are included here. First, the first paper is circular polarization techniques in microstrip patch antenna, which basically highlights the importance of certain parameters such as axial ratio, tilt angle, and sense of rotation. So now at the end of this paper gives us a 3-step procedure to follow with respect to designing the antenna, which is split the signal into 2 equal parts, feed one signal to a horizontal radiator and the other to a vertical radiator, and then change the phase of one of the signals by 90 degrees so as to achieve circular polarization. Now, the second paper shown here highlights the importance of patch modifications and their role towards providing a stable bandwidth. So the particular modification observed here is of long stubs at each corner. So by adding this long stubs, the bandwidth, axial ratio bandwidth has been increased. And now in the third paper, basically adds on to the task of patch modification from previous one. But this one puts more emphasis on the improvement of bandwidth and impedance matching so as to get maximum gain from the antenna in 5G spectrum range of 20 to 25 gigahertz, which is also, ours is also quite similar. The fourth paper highlights the compactness in the in size that can be adhered to antenna for 5G applications in both miniaturization and beam width enhancement of patch antenna. Both of these topics are discussed in this design. So after compiling all this theoretical know-how as to what goes into designing a microstrip patch antenna, we move on to the block diagram to get an overview as to how the complete process is going to look like in real time. So first we did this design, we did our design, novel design in HFSS software. We did the literature survey. We selected the frequency band under which our antenna would be working under. And also we went through all the methods, all the methods to achieve circular polarization. And we don't have any one single method which can result in circular polarization. We went through all the multiple methods. And also we selected the substrate material. The substrate material selected is to be RT-Duroid 4880. The shape of the patch antenna has been also selected after multiple iterations, which will be shown in the upcoming slides. And multiple iterations have been done to achieve that circular polarization. Simulation of the design has been done. After simulation, tuning of the design has been done to achieve wide bandwidth, and the results have been achieved. Now, in the workflow, the initial step, workflow basically tells you how we have achieved the antenna and how we have achieved the antenna design. So basically, the initial step is to insert substrate and ground plane. On the substrate, we inserted a square patch along with the inset feed. As I said before, there are many ways to achieve circular polarization, like truncation of patch, inserting slots, adding stubs, etc. So in our design, we have truncated the corners of the patch. Then we checked if the desired axial ratio bandwidth is achieved. If not, then we tuned the length of the truncated corner. And when the desired axial ratio bandwidth was achieved, we inserted the circular slot and tuned its parameter like radius and position of the slot. So like this, we continued this tuning until we achieved wide axial ratio and return loss. This has been continued. So once we achieved the axial ratio and return loss, the proposed antenna has been ready, and then we tuned it a bit to get much better results of the return loss and axial ratio. Now, these are the designs, multiple designs which we have tried. These are actually basically the failed designs in which the axial ratio was about 3 dB. So first one is inset feed circular patch. We gave a symmetrical triangular shaped cut, and then also we inserted two slots, rectangular slots diagonal to each other, and inset feed. But then the results, the axial ratio which we got here was around 6 dB. So we switched to coaxial feed instead of inset feed, as you can see in the figure 2. But then with the coaxial feed, proper E-field propagation wasn't happening, due to which the axial ratio was also not below 3 dB. And then after circular patch, we shifted to a square patch where we gave slots, square slots, but then this also didn't work. Now what we did, we started we truncated all the 4 slides. But what we've read in a book named Ball and Bell, they said you should not be truncating all the 4 sides. So truncate the 2 sides or 2 opposite sides. We did that in the figure 5, but then due to a lot of truncation, it didn't happen. And also the rectangular slot didn't help. And with the last one helped us. We added a circular slot and truncated the opposite sides with an inset feed. This gave us around 4 dB. In order to get circular polarization below 3 dB, we added 2 more circular slots. So this is our final design, in which we added 2 small circular slots of radius 0.5 mm along just beside opposite the bigger circular slot, which has a radius of 1.8 mm, and also the opposite sides of the square are truncated, and the feeding technique is inside feed. This resulted in axial ratio which is less than 3 dB, and also we were able to achieve a very good wide axial ratio bandwidth and also return loss. Here you can see the length and the length of the square patch is 7 millimeter, and the length of the truncated corners is 2 mm. Both are of the same size. And here are the listed length and width of all the. Here are the measurements of all the design. And now this is the axial ratio bandwidth from 27.8 to 29 gigahertz. So almost 1300 megahertz of bandwidth has been achieved. Axial ratio bandwidth has been achieved, which is usually the main issue in circular polarization is mostly people are bad at achieving a wide axial ratio bandwidth, but we were able to achieve this wide bandwidth, and this is achieved at the operating frequency 28.2 gigahertz, and this is the return loss. Minus 21.24 dB at 28.2 gigahertz. So, and also the operating bandwidth is quite large, 26.8 gigahertz to 29.5 gigahertz. Also, the ideal.
You have last 2 minutes, please conclude it.
Yeah. The VSWR is 1.52. The ideal VSWR is supposed to be 1, and practically we are getting 1.5, so which is quite good. And then this is the radiation pattern of our design, of our design. The ideal one is a balloon, which we have achieved pretty good radiation pattern too. This is the 3D polar plot, just a 3D version of the radiation pattern. And this is the frequency versus gain plot. And this is the E field of how the distribution is done. And this is the H plane and E plane distributions in a 2D format of our design. And hence, we have done the research, and we were able to get a circularly polarized antenna at the frequency range, at the operating frequency of 28.2 gigahertz. And we were able to achieve a gain of 6.5 dB at 28.2 gigahertz, and also got axial ratio bandwidth of 1200 megahertz. And also, if you want to do further improvements in this, you can add a metamaterial substance in order to optimize the antenna gain. So this is what we have designed. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So anyone having any question from the room? Okay, so this is actually beyond the scope of my research, so I can't comment on this. Thank you. Nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So
thank you so much, presenter, for your nice presentation. And again, I'm announcing a 2 name. If anyone is present, so please. One is Jigisha Patil, and second is Sandeep Singh. Jigisha Patil, are you present?
Ma'am, can I leave?
Yeah, you can just wait. You're done.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, my name is Junaid Alam, and my paper ID is 220.
Yeah, Junaid Alam, it's an announcement for you. I am messaging you in chat box. You are technical session 3C. Please go there and join this link.
3C.
5C, sorry, 5C.
Okay, ma'am.
I think we have done all presentations. Now, thank you so much for authors for their excellent presentation in this session. And again, I sincerely thank you all participants and for being this international conference more effective and productive. I hope this session was informative enough. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificates through email within 2 working days. And already all the papers have already forwarded to the publication, and publication will be live in within 5 to 6 months. Please cooperate with the team of World S4. I also thank our session chair for chairing this session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time and presence.
Thank you.
And I kindly request to everyone to turn on their camera for a quick snapshot for making this conference for more effective and memorable. And I request to my team to display the certificate of our chair. Thank you so much, sir. It's a token of appreciation for a team of World S4 and a Global Knowledge Research Foundation.
Thank you. So good day to everyone. Thank you. Bye. Good day. Bye.